apparently, when the bill comes, he's like, separate checks, please.
What?
Go, because these need to be paying for stuff, okay? They need to pay for these dates. They need to pay for these tacos. They need to pay for these nachos. You agree?
I agree.
Agree. 100%, okay? Hello and welcome to the Big and Little Thirsty podcast.
I'm your host, Big Thirsty.
And I'm your host, Little Thirsty. And this is our first episode.
We need to pop some champagne to that.
Yes, we do. Get the champagne. So how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. What are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, this is my mother-in-law. I've been married to her son for 2 years. We've been together for 8 years. And it's amazing. A lot of people don't have a good relationship with their mother-in-law. A lot of people definitely would not be doing a podcast with their mother-in-law. But here we are. Look at life. Look at life. So you want to introduce yourself? Oh, thank you.
So my name is Sharice, and my family is from Harlem. And
Excuse her. She's getting used to this. Like, this is new for us. She's getting used to this. Your family's from Harlem, girl. I told you to get them drinks in your system so that you could feel the vibe.
my family's from Harlem.
Harlem World.
Harlem World. They actually ran Harlem World.
Period, boo.
Inside the club in Harlem on 16th Street and Lenox Avenue originally. I am Sachi's. Cheers. Sachi's husband's mom.
Mother-in-law.
I'm her mother-in-law. And what made you decide to do a podcast?
So I just think that this is a very unique situation. Like, most people may not get along with their mother-in-law. Most people may have, like, you know, a certain guard up when it comes to their mother-in-law. But I feel like we have a good vibe. Like, we have a, you know, a unique situation going on. And then you love to talk. So I just thought it would be a great idea for especially you to be on a podcast. Like, a lot of people say that I have like an animator type of personality, but I think you do times 10.
Oh, God.
So I'm like, even though she's being a little shy right now, she does. You know, she likes to talk. So I'm like, yo, your mother is like perfect for a podcast. But Big and Little Thirsty, what made you come up with this name? Like, are they calling you Big Thirsty in the streets? Like, what's up with that?
No, so one of my girlfriends used to just call me Thirsty because we used to just be outside. We wanted to hang out, have a good time. I always wanted to get the tea. Like, oh my God, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? It's like, girl, you too thirsty to find out what happened. Yes. So my mom said to me, like, Sachi is like, just like you. She's the daughter I didn't have. So realistically, I was Big Thirsty. And then it just was natural for her to be Little Thirsty.
Oh, okay. So that's how we came up with that. Because I don't want y'all to think I'm like thirsty. I mean, I'm thirsty for the purpose of the podcast. Little Thirsty. But I'm like, thirsty? What's that supposed to mean? But yeah, so we're going to get right into it. I want to ask you some things that I've never asked you before.
Okay.
What was your first perception of me?
Very beautiful, you know, from the beginning. You know, when I saw you, it was, you know, just an infectious beauty, you know, and then your spirit is just so calm, so nice, and just like, oh my gosh, yeah, she's the one for him, you know. And I remember telling Mike one time that when he said to me, we were talking about you, and he says, I love her. I said to him, Mike, I love her. And he says, Mom, I love her too. Your personality is just like, you've meshed so well with him. Like, just, it's just amazing. The two of y'all together.
You're going to make me cry.
Don't cry.
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
But it is what it is. I mean, in all honesty, you know, when you feel like you go through life and you raise your children, you want to make sure that your children are with someone that you know that, God forbid, when the day comes, I'm not going to be here. I know that there's someone that's going to love him unconditionally and that's going to take care of him and do what needs to be done to help him, you know. And I saw all of those qualities in you, and I'm so happy that you guys are together. You know, obviously always praying for you guys, you know, for your relationship and, you know, your family and stuff like that. And just happy to be a part of you guys' growth as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely not expecting that. That was
Sorry.
very heartwarming.
Sorry.
And I appreciate that. Um, so I'm gonna tell you my first perception of you. I don't know if you
Oh
know that
gosh.
we met a long, long time ago, like briefly though. I remember me and Mike, we were not together, but we were talking like teenage years, kind of like when he was going to college. I remember me and my friend, this is when y'all lived in Parkchester. Me and my
Mm-hmm.
friend was at his y'all house. And we were there, and then you kind of came home, and then I guess you were going out. So this like when snack wraps were in like McDonald's. She came home with a McDonald's bag, and she's like, why you ain't tell me they was there? I would have got them some snack wraps." And we were just like, "Oh, okay." And then you had like your mink on, and you was about to leave. You was like, "Girls, I look good." And then you was like leaving. We were like, "Yeah." Like so, we briefly met, but then I remember when me and Mike officially got together years later. I met you at your going away party when you were
Yes.
moving to, where you were moving to, and that's when I like officially met you as
Yes.
I don't know, I don't think we were officially together, but that's when I like kind of met you for real. And you made like a little joke. I was just looking at my friend like, I don't know what she's talking about. I think you were drunk.
I was probably drinking. Sipping.
But yeah, so that's when I officially met you. And I just thought you were cool. Like, I got a young vibe from you. I'm like, oh, this lady is cool. She's
You are as old
fun.
as you feel.
Yeah, she's fun. And, I just thought, like, you be outside.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm outside.
okay, she
I'm
outside.
outside.
Yeah, so
Sometimes.
I know that, like I said, most people don't have. Well, I don't know if most people have a good relationship or a bad relationship with their mother-in-law, but I know like a lot of people have that little guard up when it comes to their significant other's family, whether she's your mother-in-law, whether it's the aunt, the cousin, whatever, they might have a little guard up because sometimes the significant other, whether it's on the girl side or the guy side, they may be acting a little funny. So I know that you once had a mother-in-law.
Yes, I did. I was
And
married to Mike's dad. Yes. And it was a very strenuous situation sometimes. I felt like I was very young and I felt like she would have been able to
let's
help to
elaborate.
nurture me.
Let's elaborate on that. So, how old were you when you got married to Mike's dad?
19. I was 19 years old.
19 years old.
Yeah.
And how old was he?
He was 27.
Okay, so he was a couple years old.
He was a couple of years older. Yes, definitely a couple of years older.
Uh-huh.
And we fell in love and we got married. And Mikey was literally like our love child. Like we were in love. We wanted to have kids, and that's just what we did. But as far as mother-in-laws go, I knew that they're
So you got married to Mike's dad. And how long were y'all together before y'all got married?
2 years.
Okay, y'all was
About
together
2
for 2
years.
years. You got
Mhm.
married. You were 19 when you got married.
Well, actually, we were together 3 years. I literally remember my first date with him was right before my 16th birthday.
Okay. Oh wow.
Exactly.
Oh wow. You
Yeah.
were
So it
young,
was
young.
like 3 years. Young.
Okay,
Yeah.
so y'all got married, and
Mhm.
then how was it when you first met his mom?
Well, it was fine. I think that she, just like any mother, because I feel like sometimes I have that same protection over my son, where you have this thing where you feel like, is this person good enough for my child and stuff like that. And realistically, when we were dating, it's a hard situation because you want to be able to feel like this person loves my child. I have to be open towards this person and stuff like that. And I feel like, she had that personality that was like, my son, my son, my son, my son, my son. And then it's like, well, somebody else matters in this situation other than your son.
That's a fact.
So realistically, it was kind of like I wanted her to be an additional mother to me because I was married young and, getting ready to have Michael, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. So I was wanting to look for guidance from her to kind of like help me. And I feel like it was more no, 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 do this, do this, do this. And it's like, lady, I have a mother.
Facts.
And, she told me what to do. And I know that this is your son, but now I'm his wife. So we need
Right.
to move forward in a different direction. So I just kind of felt very smothered. And I know that you and I had a conversation one time, and I said to you, like, I want to be able to be a good mother-in-law to you. And basically that meant that I want you to be able to feel comfortable to talk to me about things the same way you would your own mom, because
Right.
I'm here and I'm gonna love you, you're loving my son, and we need to be able to have a relationship. And it was very important to me to make listen, if there's something that I'm not doing or that I'm doing too much of, to feel free and say to me, look, pump your brakes, you need to stop a second, let's kind of like figure this out, so that I wasn't smothering you. And I said to you, listen, I want to be able to be a good mother-in-law to you. And if you feel like I'm not, let me know so I can do something different, because I wanted you to be able to feel comfortable with me.
Right. So, to touch on that.
Uh-oh.
So sometimes, even though you want to be an open book when it comes to the people that are in your circle and the people that are around you, sometimes it's hard to kind of express maybe those uncomfortable times where maybe your mother-in-law is saying things that you don't necessarily agree with or feel a way about. And it's kind of hard to express that because you want to keep a certain respect, number one. Number two, it's even though you say, okay, I want you to feel comfortable to express those things to me, it's kind of awkward a little bit, because if you do something to me or say something to me that I don't necessarily like, it's not if it was my mom, I would be like, oh no, stop, right away. But if it's you're saying something to me, I'm kind of I might hold it in, I might tell Mike,
But realistically, you should feel comfortable to be able to say, because you are a person that is, even though you guys are in a relationship, you're a person that's separate from him.
Right.
So you should be able to say this, that, and the other, this, that, and the other, knowing that I'm not going to come at you in a crazy way as well. I mean, sometimes I'm a little crazy, but, it's still all in love when it comes, but you should feel like you should be able or could be able to come to me and say, hey, what is it that we're doing? Or this is a problem. Let's figure this out.
Right. So I say all of this to say, I wanted to go into the topic. This is a question that a lot of people I ask. I'm like, what do you guys want to hear about? And they're like, we want to hear what your irks are. What irks you about your mother-in-law? What is your mother-in-law irked about you? And that's what they want to know. That's what the people want to know. So we're going to give it to them. So I've never heard this from you. I know that I did, we were prepping for this video. This is our first episode. And I was asking, we're going to talk about what irks us about each other. And you were like, well, I don't have no irks. But you know what? I know you do have irks.
Let's hear it.
I know you do have irks, because I remember one time randomly you were talking about your ex-boyfriend. And you were like, oh, he didn't, I don't remember the exact conversation, but you were like, oh, I feel like he don't ask me about my day. He didn't ask me if Mikey was getting on my nerves. He didn't ask me if Sachi was getting on my nerves. So then in my head, I'm like, oh, I get on your nerves. So I'm like, okay, we could definitely talk about it.
Gosh. I mean, I feel like, an irk for me is, I'm kind of from the old school, where we just kind of go with the flow. We talk to your aunts, your grandma, just, how do I do this? What's going on with this? What do I change? What do I need to do? Or, what's going on? And I feel like now, because of the date of technology, you Google every single thing. Every single thing. And it's like,
I already know where you're going with this.
I want to order this chair. You're like, oh, let me Google it first for the baby to see if it's okay. And girl, it's a chair. I'm from the old school where the chairs were in the kitchen when the grandmas was cooking and stuff like that. And it's like, oh no, it says here online that the baby shouldn't be in the kitchen and blah, 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 blah. Bella was eating that good food. Bella's my granddaughter. Yes, their daughter. And she was eating this good food when she was inside your belly. So she want to be able to watch grandma cook this good food.
All right. So what are you directly saying?
I'm saying that, there was no online stuff, right? So pretty much when we decided what we were going to do, for example, in relationships and children. We talked to our aunts, we talked to our moms, sometimes our moms, not really. We talked to our girlfriends, our grandma, and we just listened to stories and stuff like that. There was no internet. There was go over there and read the encyclopedia and see what it says.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously with children, you can't do that,
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only, I don't really want to say it's like a irk thing, but it's just like, okay, I raised a child. He's okay. He's good. He survived the, sitting in the kitchen and, sitting in this chair and doing this, getting on this swing and doing this. And it's kind of just like a vibe thing. Like you just kind of go with, what it was. And I know that now because the internet is so prevalent that people tend to go to the internet for every single thing. And sometimes it's just like, girl, I don't want to hear that. Let's put it in this chair, put it in this walker, put it in this thing or whatever. But I have to remember that she's not my child. She's my grandchild.
Facts.
So I have to respect your choices. That,
right.
For me, when I was raising Michael, it was a different situation. That wasn't what we did. We just did the best that we knew how to do.
Right.
That was it. It wasn't, look this up and this, that, and the other. We just kind of free flow.
Right. So, so basically what she's saying, guys, she doesn't like the fact that I fact check whatever she's offering.
Everything.
Fact check. But the reason why I sometimes do that is because, how do I say this? All right. So, sometimes like if you're telling me something, like I feel like you always kind of have something to say. You know what I mean? It's always like, oh, this, oh, that, oh, this, oh, that. So it's like, I feel like I purposely almost sometimes like have a rebuttal. Like, no, that's not it. Like, no. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, no. Like, no. Just like you were telling me one time with your mother-in-law, I guess, like, I don't know if you were like upstairs. I don't remember the exact story, but you were telling me something like, there was a bottle and she made a comment like, you gonna give Mikey cold milk. And you like, like, you know what I mean? That's kind of like the feeling. Not to say that I feel like, but it's like, let me raise my child. Like, I know what's best for my kid. Like, you know what I mean? And that's what I sometimes feel. So it's not like, I feel like sometimes it could be maybe like a no. Or sometimes it's just like, no, I'm really like, you know what I mean? Like you said, we're in the age of the internet. So everything while I was pregnant, I was actually Googling. Like, it's like we have some access to so much new information. So it's like if anything that happens with Bella, I automatically Google, like, is she supposed to be doing this? Does she need this? Does she needs this? Right. So I really actually do that. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I guess the internet could be a good or a bad thing. I don't know.
Right. And I mean, I think the thing about it is that it just wasn't of my time. Right. So I can't say that that's what I would have done because we didn't have it. So that wasn't an option for me. The option was, let me call my mom, which we call Granny. Let me call Aunt Cheryl. Let me figure out what's going on. Hey, Mikey's doing this. What do I do about this? And so on and so forth. So realistically now, yes, you guys do have a lot of access to the internet where we didn't have. We had dial-up. It was so slow. You trying to figure it out. And you just never thought to go to the internet to get answers about how and what to do with your kids. So it's new for me. So, in other words, that's your age group. That's what you guys do. And that's fine. I just feel like, let's sit her in this chair. Don't think about the reviews and stuff like that.
The reviews.
However, let me just say that I am a review person when it comes to the hotels and all of that stuff now. So I thank you for that because I do actually pay attention to the reviews and stuff before saying, let's buy this, let's go here, let's do this or whatever. So it's a great thing. It just wasn't my time. So it was hard for me to say, all right, yeah, well, in my head, I'm going to call Aunt Cheryl on the phone and be like, hey, this is what's going on, Mikey. What do we do?
I feel like back in the day, y'all were just buying stuff. Like, y'all wasn't reviewing. Like, it didn't matter if the thing was toxic. Like, it was just like, this for a baby. We going to get it and we going to be good with it. We don't give a freak about toxins. We don't care about nothing. And we don't care.
Also, it came because we were from a time where they used to hang stuff outside. So you would see the baby strollers outside. You see the car seats. You see all of this stuff hanging outside. It's like, oh, Walker, let me get this. You don't think about the fact that, oh, what's connected to this Walker that might cause a choking hazard with the child. Now, you know what I'm saying? You guys are a lot more
But
conscious
do you
of that
realize
stuff.
that you're a little bit extra? Like, let me say, like
Yes.
when you bought the gray chair for her, you're like, oh, I'm gonna put this on the kitchen table. Like, girl, why would you be putting the chair on the kitchen table?
She ain't gonna roll over. The island is big enough on my table at my home where I could sit her in the middle of it.
But a
and she
chair
ain't
on
move.
the kitchen table is absolutely insane. Like, who agrees? Comment below if you agree that a chair for a 3-month, she's now 5 months, but 3-month baby at the time is absolutely crazy to be putting on the kitchen table while you're cooking.
Grandma's watching her.
Insane.
Grandma's watching her. I got my
Grandma be
hour.
on the phone, on
Lies.
FaceTime with
Lies. Not when I'm watching Bella.
Lord knows.
Not when I'm watching Bella. Never. Not when I'm watching her.
All the time. Insane. But yeah, I just think, like you said, a difference of the times.
Yes.
And yeah, so there was a question that, again, one of the thirsties asked.
Oh gosh.
And I wanted to ask you how you felt about it. So you were a single mom. You were married, but we're going to get into it if you want to. Maybe we could do it on another episode. Your husband, Mike's dad, eventually went to jail. Y'all got divorced, whatever the situation was. And you were a single mom that raised a young man.
Yes.
Into a grown man. And my mother was a single mom who raised a young woman. So as a single mother who raised a man, I'm sure you taught your son how to treat a woman.
Yes.
How to open a door. How that he needs to provide.
I did.
X, Y, and Z. And my mother didn't necessarily teach me how to treat a man, but she taught me how to be treated by a man.
Okay.
How to, receive. That a man needs to do X, Y, and Z for you.
Right.
That your ring should be X, Y, and Z. That don't do this until this is done.
Right.
So I want to ask you, if you had a daughter, would you have taught her how to treat a man?
Well, I'm going
or
to say
have
this.
you ever been taught how to treat a man?
I'm going
or
to say
just
this.
how to be treated by a man?
I'm going to say this. I don't think that my mom prepared me for how to treat a man, right? I feel like, my mom was busy raising my brother and I, and more or less I was taught that you put your children before yourself, right? So it wasn't necessarily a man in the picture. My dad was in the picture for all of my life, but realistically, my mom didn't specifically say, okay, this is what you do. This is what you need to do. It wasn't that. One of the things that will always stick out in my head that my mom told me is that your children come before you, which means that when there's a time for sacrifice, you sacrifice anything for yourself to make sure that your children make sure that your children know that they are loved and different things like that. My mom always told us, at every phone call, even now, leaving, hanging up, I love you, Reese, or, whatever the case may be. So realistically, I feel like she didn't show me, how to treat a man.
Do you think that's important?
I think that is very important. I can recollect a conversation when you guys were coming back from vacation one time, and I was over at you guys' house, and I was on the phone with my cousin, and I'm like, we're talking, and she's like, Sachi, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm packing Mikey's bag. And I'm like, whatever.
I would never.
Because in my head, you need to unpack your own stuff. Now, I wash the clothes, but in my head, you need to unpack your own stuff. But the thing is that realistically, you should be able to cater to whoever your person is. But I feel like that should be reciprocal. That person should be able to cater to you and your needs or whatever. And to me, whatever works for your relationship is fine. It has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's what you feel comfortable with in your situation. And of course, with me and my situation, whatever I feel comfortable with, that's just basically what I'm going to do. I don't cook in the summer. Because listen, my grandmother always told me, you don't get a person used to doing something that you're not going to do.
So let's say this. Okay, so now that I have a daughter, I have an option. Either I'm going to raise her to be a wife.
Okay.
Or I'm going to raise her like my mother raised me to be a modern woman.
Okay.
We weighing the scale.
I mean,
now that I'm a wife, I do see the importance to teach your child as a woman certain things.
Of course.
Traditionally speaking. Mm-hmm. But as a modern woman, I also see, like, is it really important am I going to tell my daughter to serve a man? I don't know.
Well, so here's the thing. It's not
Am I going to tell my daughter, I don't know. I feel like I am going to promote marriage because I feel like it's the best way.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm on a fence about it.
Well, the thing is, I don't think it's really a matter of serving. I feel like it's a part of what your relationship is like with whoever your partner is. So realistically, you should be able to be a good person to your partner. So sometimes that means it's always a compromise, right? It's never what you want to do. You know, we always go see horror movies. We always go, it's not that. You know what? Tonight I'm going to go see a romance movie because that's what you want to do. Tonight I'm gonna go see a karate flick. Oh my God, I hate the karate
flick. Not a karate flick.
My brother always
Who the hell likes karate flicks?
My brother.
Not Nino.
So, yes, he does. So when my dad used to take us growing up and we used to pick movies, he used to always pick
that's
the karate
as a kid.
movies.
I'm sure he's not watching karate flicks as a grown man.
He's not watching karate flicks now, but the
she
point
trying to play you, Nino.
No. The point is that I had to say
he gonna be like, why you telling them I like karate flicks?
Listen, I had to say that even though I like a particular type of movie, I like music, I've been to the opera and, you know, Broadway plays and stuff like that. And even though I like musicals and stuff like that, I have to understand that my brother or my partner may not like that stuff. So realistically, I have to be able to say, oh, okay, today I'll go to the karate movie where they're writing words across the screen and I got to read.
Not writing words across the screen.
They have words across the screen. So I have to
subtitles.
Watch subtitles. But that's what you call them. I call them words across the screen. I feel like, why am I in school at the movie theater? But I had to also understand that it was a compromise, right? So it wasn't always about what I wanted. It was about what another person also wanted. So I feel like in a relationship, it's a compromise. So yes, you can raise her not necessarily to serve a man. You can raise her that she's going to be a partner to someone and things are not always going to go her way. Like when grandma's rubbing her feet, she can't just feel like grandma just needs to just continue to rub her feet. She needs to understand that life is not always about her. My dad used to always tell me that, you know, it's about you, boo, but it's really not all about you. And you have to understand that in a relationship, it's not really all about you. And sometimes there's another person and you have to be able to step outside of your comfort zone to be able to do the things that they like as well.
Right. But that's more about compromise. Like, I think that we could go into a whole nother influx of things. But I think that that's more about compromise. Like, obviously, you should be a good person.
Yes.
You should take into consideration what the people around you think and what the people around you want to do versus it just being about me all the time. Mm-hmm. But in a relationship, I feel like it goes deeper than that. It's like, what are our roles? You know what I mean? Like when it comes to, like you said, when you were raising Mike, you told him how to treat a woman. You need to be open in the door. You need to be a provider. You need to do this. You need to do that. And then when it comes to like raising a woman, it's kind of like, oh, well, he better be doing this and you better not F with him if he ain't doing this and da-da-da. So when it says, like, when you say like, oh, well, I think that women need to learn how to treat men, that means that they need to learn how to be cooking. They need to learn how to be cleaning. They need to learn how to be serving. They need to learn. Do you believe in that?
Well, I think that, yes.
Or no, it's like, absolutely not. I'm a city girl. You don't need to be doing nothing up in here. F that.
So here's what I'm going to say, right? So most times when you say F that, it's because a person ain't doing what they need to be doing. And sometimes you need to be getting ready.
So let's say, all right, let's pause. So Mikey's dad, what was his occupation when you guys were getting married?
Well, Mikey's dad was a street pharmaceutical person. You know, I met him.
Say that again in the mic.
A street pharmaceutical person.
Street pharmaceutical person.
That's, business terms.
Business terms.
However, realistically, he was a drug dealer, you know, in the 90s. And
that's when they was getting that money, period, Pooh.
Yeah. So I think that what happened was he was definitely a provider for me. You know, I feel like he also ironically set the bar super duper high for
Mm.
what a man is supposed to do because, you know, I was 19 years old. I had my first house, you know,
Wow.
I had 2 businesses and different things like that. I was able to be at home with my son,
Mm.
you know, even though he went to daycare part time, just to give him something to do. But for the most part, I was at home with him. I didn't have to go to work. So he provided a lifestyle that I was able to be at home with my child, which I felt was
Right.
very important, you know, during
Exactly.
their early years to be able to nurture
Yeah.
them. You know, I didn't think about the other things, you know, the police knocking down my door and, you know, all those things. It
That
was, you know, we were
came
living
eventually.
eventually, right? But it was, you know, definitely a good life. So I feel like, you know, in some instances, in one instance, he definitely set the bar super high for what a relationship was supposed to be like. Because in my head, I'm like, oh, you know, my husband, you know, brought me a house and I had these businesses and I had new cars and, you know, all of these
The
things.
pool
And yes, with the pool. And we had to keep the door locked so Mikey couldn't get out to get into the pool because he loved to swim. But realistically, he set the bar very high for what a man is supposed to do. So it also kind of, when I went into the dating pool after him and I got divorced, it was kind of like, you know, you expect that these guys are supposed to do these different things, you
Right.
know, kind of like, I don't remember what that movie was, but it was like, how much do you need? And it's like this much. And, you know, you
he
just
got that
get
much.
that much.
Right.
And that was it. You know, one of the things, the downfalls of that is that he didn't really show me how to maneuver in life money wise, right? Because it was kind of like he'd say, Reese, how much are the bills? He'd give me money for the bills. And then I'm like, oh, I spent $1,700 at the mall today. And he'd just give it right back to me. So when, you know, he went away, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, how do people live off of these paychecks? Like, how do
Right.
you pay all of these bills and different things like that with these paychecks? So, but he definitely set the bar very high for what the expectation was supposed to be for a man in a relationship.
Right.
And that was definitely the provider. You know, he was a great dad to Mikey. You know, he would always say, my son, my son, my son, my son, my son, you know, dragging him around and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like, how do you enter the world after that? How do you enter the world
Right.
after that?
So why did y'all break up?
Well, we broke up because, you know, after the feds came and arrested him. Yeah, the feds. After the feds came and arrested him, we were separated, obviously, you know, and during that time, you know, I found out that he had been entertaining another woman.
Another woman.
So when I found out that he was entertaining another woman through the lawyer that I was paying for,
She was paying for.
with his money though. I could have ran. No, listen, because it was a whole big thing in Harlem because they felt like it really was a whole big thing in Harlem.
Tell the people.
They felt like I took his money and, you know, just left. And that wasn't the
Why
case.
was it a big thing in Harlem though?
Well, it was a big thing in Harlem because it was like, oh, you know, he did so much for this woman and da da da. He got married to her and did
But
this
who was it a big thing amongst? Like who was making it a
Well,
big
it was
deal?
some guys that he knew that he was friends with. And, you know, I was in New York one time and, you know, I had to straighten him out to let him know like that wasn't the case. Like I was, listen, literally, Mike took care of me. He took care of my mom. He took care of my family. You know, my cousins used to come down for the summer and stuff like that when we lived in Virginia. And it wasn't that, but it was the fact that he violated what happened in my grandmother's church. So we got married in my grandmother's church, my grandparents' church, my great grandparents' church rather. And I felt like, you know, this wasn't my wifey thing. No, we were legally married. So realistically, you stepped outside of that boundary. So now I have to make a decision. And my decision was, okay, do I want to stay with this man or do I want to continue on my own life? And realistically, at that point, I was instantly a single mother and I had to make decisions for myself and my child.
Right.
By myself. It didn't matter what anybody else said.
At what, 20, 21 years old?
22 years old. I was 22 at that time. Mikey was 3 years old. And realistically, I had to make the decisions for him, about him, on my own.
Right.
So there wasn't, you know, a what do you do or what have you. So the perception was that I took whatever money he had and I basically left him. And no, it was, I left the relationship. I didn't leave him. You know, I did everything that I could do, you know, as far as his lawyers were concerned and stuff like that. But realistically, I still had to live on my own with our child.
Right. So you dated a man in the street life, and that was back in the day when y'all was young. Would you ever do that again?
I feel like I'm done with the feds kicking my door in.
Okay.
You know, in all honesty, you know, I worked at a company for the last 17 years in banking, you know, where you have a federal registry license number and stuff like that. So for me, I just feel like that's not necessarily the way. It's not my choice. You know, somebody, it may be a choice for someone else, but it's not my choice because I realized that, you know, and I have said to him, you know, realistically, you could have worked one day a week at McDonald's to take care of your family and be here.
But would you
versus
still
not.
have been with him if he would have worked at McDonald's?
I definitely would.
Are you
Because
sure?
I definitely would have.
For
Simply
that, what was
because-
it? Because I know it was $7.25 minimum wage when I was in college. So maybe 20 years back, how much was it minimum wage? $4
I mean, listen.
an hour?
No,
And
it
you
wasn't.
told me that one day you was on a highway, the car went hot, and you done ordered another car off the
That's
highway.
right.
So $4 an hour, was you really doing that?
Listen, no, I wouldn't have been doing that, but that was also what my lifestyle was, right? So what happened was my lifestyle was that way until he went to jail. Because once he went to jail, now I had to take care of everything on my own and I had to figure out. And I was like, oh my God, how do people live off of these paychecks? Like I didn't understand that because I went from my mom's house to a home with him.
Right.
You know, where he took care of everything. So I never, at that point, had never ever been on my own to try to figure things out. And I'm like, oh my God, how do people survive in this world without a drug dealer and a drug dealer's pocket? So I'm just saying, like realistically, because
drug dealer
I'm just saying that
crazy.
realistically because the money was always flowing. So I didn't
Right.
understand how somebody that was working for $7.25, but when I look at the time that was lost, you know, the time that he was away from his child who he was so close to
It's like
coming
that
up and
$4
his
would have
other
been worth
daughters,
it.
his daughters as well, you know, that it was kind of like, what are you doing now?
It wasn't worth it.
It definitely wasn't worth it.
The long term of things wasn't
Correct.
worth it.
It definitely
Right.
wasn't worth it. You know, so for me, I worked very hard to make sure that Mikey went to college. You know, he went to school and, you know, was always in activities so that he didn't get caught up in their gang life and different things like that. And I definitely didn't want him to be in the street life. So a lot of times when we would go to his basketball games, you know, I would just cheer for the whole team because I wouldn't want the guys. No, I'm serious.
What?
I would cheer for the whole team because I didn't want people to know specifically who my son was.
Why not?
Because I didn't want a guy on the street that was friends with his dad to feel like, oh, you know what? This is Mike's son. They called him Rock. You know, this is Rock's son. Let me give him a package of drugs so he can sell to help get him on
Ooh,
his
so
feet.
you were really into that street life if you were like thinking about stuff like that.
No, listen, I was just a mother that was trying to take care of her child.
But you were accustomed to things going a certain way where you felt like you had to protect your child from X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you were kind of
Absolutely.
accustomed to.
Absolutely.
Right? Because my mother wouldn't have been thinking about that.
Well, I think that girls and boys are definitely different.
but
right?
even if she had a son, she wouldn't even think about that because my mother wasn't a street chick.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I won't necessarily say, I want to say that my uncles were street people. I was not allowed at the rooftop. I wasn't allowed to all this when the girls used to come in and they got all these new things and da-da-da, and guys was providing. I wasn't allowed to do that stuff. But my family, my mother and father were able to provide for me. I had a great life growing up and stuff like that. And I feel like I didn't necessarily need a man to be able to do anything. It was nice that when he came, he was able to do things. And like I said, Mike was really like my first real relationship. And, you know, he did a lot. So he set the bar really high for what things are supposed to be.
Do you feel like he still has that impression on you where the bar is still set high, or you feel like you kind of let that go, that past is the past?
I feel like once you get to my age, you know, I'm over 50, and I feel like once you get to a particular age and you're able to do things for yourself, you just want to be able to have a good time. You're not really concerned with whatever because you can take care of yourself, you know, at that point. At that point where I was going through those things with Mikey's dad, you know, I may have needed someone to be able to help, you know, with sneakers for Mikey, car fare, you know, clothes and, you know, all of that stuff. You know, Mikey always went to private school and different things like that. But the bottom line at this point, I'm on my own. I don't have any children that I need to take care of or that I need to worry about. So I can do whatever I feel like doing. I have to be able to live my own life. And whatever that means, that's what that means. However you take that, that's how you take that. Because
Okay,
that's
period.
that's what it is. So for me, I'm at a point where, I need to do and I do what makes me happy. Period.
Mhm.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
No limits.
No limits.
Okay.
I'm grown. I'm grown. Listen, my pastor always says we live, we love, we serve. We don't know how long we have on this earth, and I live every day like it could be my last day.
Okay. That's period, Pooh. So one thing that I didn't touch on, I first of all didn't introduce myself, and I also didn't tell you my irks about you.
Oh,
Two
gosh.
things
Let's hear
I
this.
didn't say. So what should I do first? Should I introduce myself or should I tell you my irks? Which one you want to hear first?
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. So I'm Sachi, Mike's wife, Sharice's mother-in-law.
You're
Bella's
my daughter-in-law.
mother.
You're my daughter-in-law.
Oh, daughter-in-law. Bella's
Daughter-in-law.
Bella's mother. Ow. So, my family's from Harlem as well. My grandmother is from Japan. My grandfather is from Harlem. May he rest in peace. He met my grandmother during World War II. He was a master sergeant in the Air Force. Very important to my grandmother because she'd be like, oh, he had 3 stars, 3 stripes, whatever it was. She'd be like, oh, he had the stripes. Like, he wasn't no regular. Like, he was the master sergeant.
Know who he was.
Big master sergeant. So, Alfred Garrett was a master sergeant during World War II. He went to Japan. He met my grandmother. Chased her around for 8 months. Okay. She didn't really want to marry him. She was on to the Japanese guy, but she met him and he chased her around. He was black. He chased her. She was like, I don't know about this. But he pursued her and he got what he wanted. He told her, I got a big house in New York. Took her to New York. She said, I arrived in a taxi and I saw an apartment building. I said, what the heck is this? We have houses in Japan. They don't have no apartment. Well, back then they didn't have no apartment buildings. I've never been there, so I don't know what they have now. But they didn't have no apartment buildings. So she was very confused. Mm-hmm. She was like, oh, this man lied to me. Right. Because I'm pulling up to an apartment in this foreign place and I don't know what the hell this is. So she came. They lived there. Eventually, they had 3 kids. My mother, who's the oldest, and then 2 younger siblings, a brother and my aunt, a brother and a sister, my aunt and my uncle. Mm-hmm. And he eventually passed away from a heart attack when my mother was 6 years old. This was back in the 60s because my mother was born in 1958. Mm-hmm. And eventually, she moved to Drew Hamilton on what is that? 141st Street. 141st Street. From 143rd. Wait, no, my grandmother lived on 141st.
Yeah, but it started on 141st.
Whatever it is, 141st, right. 142nd, 143rd. I feel like it's 141st though, because I know it's right down the block.
Yeah, 141st.
Yeah,
141st. Where we used to live at
2680. Yeah. That's where they live.
2640.
That's where they live. I ain't lived there, but that's where they lived, and that's where they was raised. When my grandfather died, my grandmother moved there. That's probably when the projects first opened. Okay, that's when they lived there, and my mom and aunt and uncle went to St. Charles down the block on 141st, and that's where they went.
We went to church there one time.
Okay, see, we crossed paths. Me and him probably crossed paths there, but that's where they went to church, and then eventually my mom's godfather, they inherited a brownstone through him on 137th Street. Mm-hmm. So that's where I came about. My cousins came about, and I was raised on 137th. Where they inherited the brownstone, they ended up moving there, and that's when I came, and my cousins came, and blah blah blah, and yeah, so that's kind of like my story. We were raised there, and eventually, not definitely, I'm a little tipsy. I moved to they sold the brownstone, and then I moved to Riverdale, 238th. And Broadway. I know you and your husband lived there, right? Well. So we lived there. And that's kind of like what my life was. Like I went from Harlem to Riverdale. They don't really consider Riverdale the Bronx. They say that's like that's not really the Bronx. Mm-hmm. Like, it was in a Jewish building. Mm-hmm. The mall was in there. We had a pool in our apartment. Yeah. Well, we didn't have a pool, but it was definitely fancy. Like we had a doorman. It was a daycare right by the side. It was only Jewish and Italian people in the building. Right. But yeah, that's where we lived. And that's just what it was. That's where my family's
Let's hear
from.
this irk. Let's hear this irk. Oh my
Oh,
God.
the irk. She ready for the irk. Okay. So just like you said, your mother-in-law used to try you. I feel like in the beginning used to try me. I'm not even gonna get into what's
Lord.
now. I'm
Oh,
gonna talk
Lord.
about back then.
Oh gosh. Here we go.
So I guess it wouldn't be a real irk, but I feel like you used to try me back then. Like I just feel like you used to just say little stuff, and I just feel like,
But think about it. I always say little stuff, even now.
No,
That's just my thing.
I realize that. I'm like,
Mhm.
you're not just like that with me. You're like that with everybody. Like
Right.
that's just your personality,
Right.
and I've
Mhm.
learned that
Okay.
with knowing you. But do you want me to go low, moderate, or high?
Oh Lord.
Because I got examples. Low, moderate, or high.
Just go moderate. Let's go moderate.
Oh, and
Let's
she wants
go
it in the middle. Okay, so let me think.
Oh gosh.
Okay. So I just feel like you just say little things that is kind of like in the beginning, like let's say,
Well, wait, can I first say this? I'm just gonna say this, right?
say it.
As I have gotten older, my grandmother used to tell me you need to be very careful about what you say out your mouth because you don't know how it affects other people. And you need to think before you speak. So sometimes a person doesn't think before they speak
That's a
because
fact.
it's kind of like a instant, it's right now happening, it's right now, this is what I say. And you don't think maybe until later, like, dang, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or how should that person take that? So let's hear your example.
So you know what?
happened?
It's so funny that you say that because I really didn't think that you even had that.
What?
Like that kind of like empatheticness where you're kind of like, oh, I should never said that. Like,
No, I mean you do think about it, but it's like I know one time we had a conversation about anxiety and stuff like that. And you made me realize that the person that's talking may also have an anxiety when getting ready to talk to another person. So they hold back, which gives them more anxiety. Right. So the thing is a lot of times you don't think before you talk, you speak, and then it's like, oh, dag. Well, how does she affect that? How does she take that? But realistically, for me, I feel like I'm the type of person that if I offended you, you should be able to say,
you're a very open book.
Why you say that? Why
you
say that like
say
that
what you mean how you say, and you just, and I admire that because for me, I kind of hold back. Like if I feel some type of way, I may hold it and think about it, process it, and be like, did that really happen? You know what I mean? Like I'm not really, I would say I'm not a confrontational person. When it comes to my husband, I would say that I'm confrontational because I have to be.
Okay.
I cannot not say something.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But when it comes to like other people, I'm kind of like, can let that slide. You know what I mean? But I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking in my head like low. I remember the low. I remember the high, but I don't remember the moderate. So I might have to give you the low or the high.
Oh, give me something else. Give me something else. Give me something else.
Okay.
Give me the high.
Okay, the high.
So I can apologize. Let me apologize again.
So this was.
Let me pour you some more champagne as I apologize.
So I'm gonna say this the best way possible. It wasn't really that bad, but it was bad back then. Like now, I don't really judge you for it or anything like that. This was years ago. So our first New Year's together, right? So we're at Aunt Cheryl's house. Y'all, one thing y'all gonna get to know Aunt Cheryl because she gonna come on this podcast and she gonna turn up, okay? But Aunt Cheryl's house, that's her aunt, Mike's great aunt. We were at her house and it was New Year's.
Okay.
And we were all vibing. It was the cousins, they baby mothers there. Everybody was there. Like we was all chilling.
Because that's what we do at Aunt Cheryl's house. Everybody pull up.
So this is my maybe first or second New Year's with them. Maybe my first. I feel like it was the first because it was a long time ago. So we were playing a game.
Oh.
And we were like writing what our goals for the new year and X, Y, and Z. And I don't know if I can necessarily say this on camera, but I'm going to ask you. So,
oh God.
So you were dating someone at that time. This was years ago.
Okay.
Years ago. And y'all went through a situation that eventually led to a breakup.
Okay.
Can I say why y'all broke up?
I don't even know what you're talking about. So
the man that starts with a D, y'all were together. Why y'all broke up? Can I say that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So she was with somebody and they were together. They had a good relationship until this man ended up having a child. and that they ended up breaking up. Whatever. I just had to say that to say the reason. So we were playing this game or whatever. Oh, I spilled the champagne on the couch. Oh, okay. So we were talking, and one of the baby mothers of the cousins was at the house, and we were talking. Whatever. I'm saying this story a little twisted because I'm a little tipsy. But basically, what happened was we were talking about if me and Mike were to ever have a baby,
Okay.
and you were like, "Oh, oh no. Matter of fact, what happened was the question came up, and it was like, would you ever stay with a man if he had a baby outside of you?"
Okay.
And for me personally, I feel like I would not. I never been placed in that situation, but I feel like I would not.
Okay.
But because I knew the situation that you were currently dealing
Y'all remember
with,
y'all remember y'all played a joke on me.
I don't remember that, but let's not change the conversation.
I remember
Let's
the
not
joke.
change the
I remember the
conversation.
joke. Okay.
So basically, that's what was going on. They were asking, like, oh, would you ever leave a man if he had a baby on you?
Mhm.
And me personally, I would absolutely leave a man if he had a baby on me. How I feel then and how I feel now, that has never happened to me. So I don't know what I would actually do in a situation. But from what I would say now, I would absolutely leave a man if he had a baby on me. But you were having a situation where you were in the middle, whatever. And me knowing that, no one else knew that in the room, I was like, I don't know what I would do just because I was sensitive to how you would feel. Because I know that was your current situation. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe I would. Like, whatever. And she was like, oh, you're stupid. One of the baby mothers, oh, you're stupid. Why would you ever stay with a man if he had a baby on you? And I was like, that's my choice. Like, just because I'm thinking about how you would feel knowing that that was your situation at the time. And I'm like, maybe I would. I don't know. Like, it depends. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, because I didn't want you to feel no type of way. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I would. And she's like, oh, that's dumb. Like, you would stay. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I would.
Right.
And then it turns out you were like, oh, well, you know, if you and Mikey have a baby, I'm going to have to do a DNA test for your child. And I'm just like looking at you like, what? Like, I'm sitting here trying to defend you, and you over here talking about you going to DNA test my child. So I'm looking at you like,
what? Okay. So the DNA thing is my mother's thing.
No, but wait, could you imagine how that feels? Like, I'm sitting here, this bitch is calling me dumb. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting here like, yeah, I'm dumb. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I might stay with him. And you like, well, I might get a DNA test. I'm like,
well, I think that, okay, so it's two situations.
Really?
It's two situations, right? So you have to understand that when you have a son, typically that's what you do.
No. But listen from my perspective. I'm telling you, I'm defending you low key. Because that's not what I would do. But I'm embarrassing myself.
Low key,
yeah, I'm dumb.
Because again, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying low key in the sense that I didn't take it as you were defending me, right? It's we all having a conversation. And basically people are just talking about what they feel like at that time.
You switched the convo and made it about me. You were like, well, we're DNA testing you if you have a kid.
Did I say that?
You did.
You
was like, we're DNA testing you if you have a kid because that's just what we do in our family.
I apologize.
And we just need to know if the kid is actually his.
So
and I'm like, girl, what?
Well, listen, let me just say this. From having a brother, this is kind of like what happens, right? You know, because, no, there was a young lady who lied on my brother. No, seriously. There was a young lady who lied on my brother and said that, you know, there was a child that was his. I mean, he does have 4 kids, but there was a child prior to any of his children where a woman did say that. And realistically, that was something that I took on from my mom. So remember that when you grow up, you tend to do what your parents do because that's what you know, right? So it had nothing to do with you more than it had to do with this was kind of like a thing that was going to happen and this is what we were going to do.
And I understand that.
So not necessarily you per se with your relationship with him and anything like that. It had nothing to do with that. It was just, this was what my mom was doing with my brother. There was a situation where, you know, a woman had claimed that my brother had a child from her and it wasn't his daughter.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Right. So it wasn't his daughter. She named the little girl Michaela and everything after my brother Michael.
Stop.
And it was no, I'm dead serious. Stop. And my mom did the DNA test and found out that she wasn't his child. So it's kind of like I said, when you move around in life, you do what you know, what your parents show you. So it wasn't offensive. It shouldn't have been offensive to you. And I apologize now if it was offensive to you, because for one, I wasn't looking at that situation where you were taking up for me silently, right? Because it wasn't like, we knew that this was a conversation and you said, oh, I'm going to take up for my mother-in-law because this is what she's going through. It was me on the side knowing that this is what my mom does because she knew that there was a situation and she had to do. So in my head, I have a son. And again, when a woman has a child for my son, whoever it is, I have no idea what the situation or what their situation may be. So we need to just make sure before we start loving and hugging on
Not
this
before
child.
we start loving.
Before we start loving
But
and hugging
my
on
thing
this
was,
child.
and I understand that now, and I understand that, men, they get into situations where, sometimes the shit ain't right. But at that time, I felt like you knew. I was looking at you like, I got your back. I got your back. Like, I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I'm going to stay with him, maybe. You know what I mean? And you was just kind of like, I'm DNA testing you if you have my son's kid. And I was like,
well, so the thing is that you gotta, so like I said, my grandmother told you gotta think about what you say. So again, in a conversation, sometimes you don't have a chance to think about what you're gonna say because it comes out because it's a natural reaction based on what the conversation was. So I'm gonna say I apologize to you now if you felt, or obviously you felt some kind of way. It had nothing to do with you. It has to do with my son and what my mother did with my brother. So I felt like it was a natural thing to say that this is what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, but I felt like it was just wrong place, wrong time.
Absolutely.
Wrong place, wrong time.
And that's why I said I apologize. I'm grown enough to know, to be able to say, like, listen, this was a wrong thing, and
this was years ago though, like maybe 7 years ago. This was like in the very beginning. But so I asked,
oh God,
the thirsties, I said, what do y'all want to hear? Hit us up, hit our line, hit the text message up. Let us know how y'all feeling. Let us know what y'all want to know. Y'all want some advice? She's very good at giving advice. You know what I mean? So someone wrote us. Someone wrote us, and I'm going to read you the question right now. So it says, hey, thirsties, congrats on the podcast. So let me drop this bomb on y'all. I met a guy on a dating app. He's tall, looking like he just stepped off a magazine cover. We've been chatting for 2 weeks straight, waiting for our schedules to align. Let me tell you, this guy seemed like the whole package. He had a job in tech, just came back from out the country, and not a kid in sight. I was seriously looking forward to our date. So fast forward to the big night. He pulls up to my house in his nice car with roses. Long stem roses at that.
I'm a flower girl.
Okay. We hit up this spot. Not too fancy, but not a mom and pop either.
Okay.
We were vibing, laughing, having deep conversations about life. He was telling me how he's a provider. When he's in a relationship, he loves to spoil his woman. He don't want his woman to work. He had all this fun when he was younger. Now he's looking for the one. He's looking to settle down. He was turning me on. We're sipping on drinks, munching on tacos, nachos. He even suggests we take a shot. So we took a shot. It was a good vibe. He said he didn't want the night to end and suggested we go to a lounge after. So I agreed. Suddenly, when the bill comes, he's like, separate checks, please.
What?
I'm sitting there like, hold up. Isn't this the same dude with the Benz? But hey, I didn't want to kill the vibe, so I rolled with it. We head to the lounge. He asked me what I want to drink. I say tequila. He goes, I got you. He orders a bottle of Patron.
A whole bottle.
And
didn't want to pay for dinner.
Wait, hold up. You ain't know. The whole bottle. When he sees the baller bottle special that was left on the table, he's like, oh, that's light. Meanwhile, I'm checking the hookah menu, planning my flavor. The bill comes. It's at $300. He slides $150 cash across the table, then hits me with, you got the rest?
Nigga, no.
I'm sitting there looking at him like he just sprouted wings or something. He flexing like he got stacks, but he acting like he's struggling to pay
That was your first and last. That was your first and last date.
Bill.
That was your first and last date.
Then when he hits me with, I only pay for my woman. He says I only pay for my woman, but if you ain't got it, you could pay me back. So what's the deal, Thirsties? Is he playing games or being cautious? Are men not paying for dates anymore?
First of all, let me just say this. I feel like a man definitely should pay for a date. Okay? I feel like you should pay for a date that's appropriate for your pockets, right? You know, you pick a place where you know it's convenient for you, or it's feasible for you to be able to take and say and pay. But first of all, I would not have went to the second place at all. Because for me, it would have been enough at the first table. And don't get me wrong, as a woman, I can take and pay for my own situations when I go this, that, and the other. But realistically, if you want a date, boo, first date, whatever, you need to be able to cover it. You need to be able to cover it. If not, you need to take a woman to a place where you can afford. I'm not trying to say how much a date should cost, that it should be so expensive or an expensive place. But if you're taking a woman on a date, it's your responsibility to take care of that date. There's no 50-50 and no da-da-da. You don't ask nobody for half, R. Kelly was asking for half a baby, but you ain't asking nobody for no half of nothing. So realistically,
but this is a man that can afford it. He has a tech job. He came up
listen,
in a
let me just say something. If a man says that he is dating, we get it. If you're dating multiple people, trying to find the one or whatever, dating with a purpose or whatever, you need to be able to do it. But absolutely, for me, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, I would not have went to the second place. I definitely
oh no, honey.
No. I wouldn't have been to the second place.
What you would have said, like, to cut it off?
No. I wouldn't have said anything. I would have went ahead. If he passed the bill, I would have went ahead and go ahead and paid it. And then when he said we're going to the next spot, I would have politely called myself an Uber and I would have got the hell on. Period. That's it. So he would have been sitting at the spot waiting, this, that, and the other. Because realistically, you don't take a woman out on a date and you're supposed to expect that a woman is supposed to pay. That's just not how it's supposed to be.
So I feel like she probably felt like this man had money. So it doesn't matter. Maybe he was testing her.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, you pulling up in your Benz, you got a job in
his
tech.
Car, his job. Those
whatever.
Are his things. Those are his things.
Right. So maybe she felt like, oh, maybe this is a test. Maybe he's been used before. Maybe he's trying to test me to see if I pay the taco bill. You know what I mean?
Well, then you know what?
But maybe going to the next spot and he going to cover that.
No, in all honesty, that should have been a conversation that would have been had before. Because before you go out on that date, you already know what your situation is. So nobody's counting anybody's pockets. Maybe you didn't know. They always say that a guy looks and waits for the girl to order first to see what they order so that they know. Listen, they always say a guy always sees what the woman is going to order so that they know that they have enough to cover the woman's bill and their own bill.
No shit like that.
Listen. All I'm saying is that the bottom line is I can tell you, sidebar. My son, I asked him when he came from college about dating a girl, if he was dating anybody. And he said to me, he says, Ma, I'm not dating a woman until I know that I can take her out to restaurants. I can give her a couple of dollars for get her hair done. I can give her a couple of dollars to get her nails done. And realistically, you know that you need to be able to do something. Come to the table with something.
Right.
So the only thing that I'm saying is I'm not counting anybody's pockets. I'm not saying where you need to be going, an expensive restaurant or not. You go where you can afford to go. But I feel like a man should definitely be responsible for that tab on a date.
But like, listen. So like, let's say you out with a guy that you really feeling like he got a nice job. You know that he got money. He own his house, whatever the case may be.
His.
Right. So you go to a taco spot and he like separate checks. You a little turned off. Like,
I'm definitely turned off.
That's crazy.
I'm definitely turned off.
But maybe it's only $22. But he
like, let's go
to a spot after.
It's the principle.
I go to a spot after.
It's the principle.
And maybe like.
That's why Rosa Parks sat on the bus. It's the principle.
But maybe you feel like, okay, so he's paying by the spot. I'll be turned off too. But I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to relate with thirsties.
Okay.
So I don't know. Like, maybe you feel like, okay.
It's the principle.
Maybe you feel like, okay. Me personally, I would just feel like it's laughable at this point. Like, I'll be texting my friends like, this nigga's a joke.
I wouldn't be going to the second place.
Yeah, I don't know if I would either. Maybe I was real lit. Like, I just want to turn up.
No.
Like, I don't know. But the nigga ordered a whole bottle of Patron and then expect her to pay half. That's crazy.
No.
So what you want to tell her? Leave him. Don't talk to him, right?
I'm going to say that a conversation needs to be had with him because, again, you can't count somebody else's pockets. So have a conversation.
But he got money.
It's his money.
Yeah, but I'm saying he got money. So what's the conversation you had? Oh, you need to be spending your money on me.
No, nobody's saying that. The thing is that shouldn't be a conversation because what are your family values? What are your family telling you? Your family tells you should be going.
She said, like, sidebar, she told me that she said like during the conversation that they was having, he said on a text it said he'd like to spoil his woman.
Okay.
But he said only his woman though.
Right. So
he
when
not
you're dating,
spending on these random chicks. So what if your son came to you? Like, let's say he wasn't married. These chicks be trying to get me out my pockets. They be trying to get me to spend on them. I ain't spending till I'm in a relationship.
well, I don't think that's how it should be, because realistically, when you're dating with a purpose. So realistically, at
So let
some
me just
point,
spend all my money and
No,
buy
that's
you
what I'm
all
saying.
you want. And you order
no,
10
that's
shots of tequila and I'm
No.
paying for you. But you ain't gonna take me seriously because you got 10 niggas on the side.
no, nobody's saying that.
How you feel about that?
I feel like realistically, a person is going to be meshed with who they're meshed with. And if you have a conversation with a young lady, I mean, realistically, before you got to this first date, y'all been vibing
For 2 weeks.
regardless. But I'm saying y'all been vibing. So realistically, for a man to feel like he can take a woman out on what's considered to be a first date and doesn't feel like he's supposed to pick up the full tab is a problem for me.
It's a problem for me too.
So for me, I'm going to, instead of going to the second place after that half bill, because I would have put out my Amex and it would have been no problem.
The Amex,
and,
okay?
and it would have been a problem, but I wouldn't have been meeting him at the second place. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because
I'm in my Uber.
and it's just a matter of principle, because I feel like realistically, you don't take a person out and feel like they're supposed to split the bill with you.
Facts.
Unless you have a conversation prior to and say, listen, you know what? I really want to take you to this restaurant.
But I don't
I'm
pay.
maybe not able to afford it, or whatever the
it's
case
not,
may
but
be.
the thing is, it's not that he can't afford it. It's the fact that he just don't want to pay for a woman that's not his. He don't want to be used.
Okay. Listen, there's no problem with that. My problem is I wouldn't have went to the second place. It doesn't matter. So how we can wrap this up and say, listen, my advice to a woman is do what makes you happy. If you feel like you want to pay half the bill, then that's all for you. And that would be the first date for me. And it would be over. That would be it. However, if you feel like it's okay to split the bill when you're out with somebody, that's no problem. I feel like it should be pre-discussed, because I feel like as a woman, when you're going out with a man, you're expecting that the man is supposed to pick up the bill.
Facts.
So it's not a problem with doing it, but let's have a conversation first, because realistically, you may not necessarily know if that woman has it to be able to be out on this date with you.
She could pay
He
him
said,
back.
no. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because realistically, you set the tone for how you want your relationship to be
Right.
at some point. You're not boyfriend and girlfriend, you're out dating, but when you're out, you're setting the tone for how things are supposed to be.
He said he spoils his woman when he in a relationship, but right now he ain't spoiling nothing because
Okay. And again, for me,
she ain't his.
I wouldn't have went to the second place. And that's just me. You understand what I'm saying? For her, as a young lady, obviously when you're out and you're dating, sometimes you're dating multiple people.
Go, yeah.
You know, you might feel like it's
she
okay
might
to
have
do that.
thought
No.
like, okay, so he's ain't paying for this, but he gonna pay for the next spot. Like,
I wouldn't went to second
I wouldn't have
place.
went either. You know, so my advice to you is just leave him alone. He's too stuck on modern day principles. If you a traditional woman, you want to let that go, because these need to be paying for stuff. Okay, they need to pay for these dates. They need to pay for these tacos. They need to pay for these nachos. You agree?
I agree.
Agree. 100%. Okay. And my mother always told me, like, by the third time a man spend money on you, that's when you offer. I don't know if you learned.
I mean, listen,
Third, 10th, 11th,
listen,
12th. My
I'm a
mother
woman-
told me the third.
Listen, I'm a woman of a particular age, and I feel like if
No,
I want to do
let's say
something,
back
I'm
in
going
the
to do
day.
it. Okay, back in the day.
How long would you have waited to spend money to reciprocate the energy until a man did it for you? Would you have waited for some women never reciprocate?
I mean, I don't think that a time should be put
No,
on it.
like,
I feel like you just
vibing.
feel, if you
Like a
vibing,
man
you
done
feel
bought
like
you
when you're
this,
ready.
bought you that, bought you this. When you reciprocating the energy, never or soon.
Listen, I done had a man buy me a house. So realistically,
Was you ever
you
reciprocating
buying?
that? You done left him.
I wasn't buying no house.
Okay, she left him.
No, I left him because he cheated on me.
Okay.
So that's a little different story.
All right.
But my advice to her is do what makes you feel comfortable. That's it. You got to do what makes you feel
But
happy.
not what makes you feel comfortable, because sometimes what makes you feel comfortable is not right. Like, you in your comfortability and you fucking up. Like, at the end of the day, I feel like, I don't know. We go on a whole deep subject. We're going to save that for episode number 2.
Yes.
We're going to let you know that just go, like you said, go with your vibe.
Go with your vibe, but what you feel like.
What you feel like. But so we're going to get into it on episode number 2, because
Yes.
we done went too long. And we just want to say thank you, Thirsties,
Thank
for
you for
watching.
tuning
We
in.
love you guys.
Yes,
Tuning
thank
in.
you
First
so
episode.
much.
Click,
Yes.
click, 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 click. First episode. And